Perhaps no other track has as many surface changes as does Sebring. From concrete taxiways weathered over 80-some years, to more recently installed tarmac, to a multitude of patches strewn about the track's 3.65 miles. The search for purchase is a study in strategic anticipation. And then, of course, the bumps. They are legendary in turns 1 and 17, but make no mistake, with all those transitions, they lurk everywhere. And the big ones can shapeshift what would be a winning move on any other track into instant carnage. Add in a pack of howling Spec Miatas and their mega competitive pilots, well, being up on the wheel and well ahead of the car and track isn't just a matter of winning and losing, it's a matter of survival. Hi folks, I'm Greg Creamer along with Kyle Heyer, and we return to Sebring International Raceway for a second time in 2024's Season 1 of the Full Send Sims Esports iRacing Series. And Kyle, even though we raced here just 4 weeks ago, it never feels bad to hurry back to Sebring because somehow it never disappoints.
Well, this track is one of the oldest in North American racing as far as modern courses are concerned, but the track never gets old. Well, the bumps age over time. Every time we come here, it puts on an exceptional show. I can't wait. And what better time to practice driving this racetrack than before an SCCA event upcoming here this weekend at Sebring. And this track is laser scanned, so learn where those bumps are and you can use it when you head on track in the real world here this weekend. Really excited to get things underway for this next round.
Yeah, good point. We're not here just because we love the place. There is a big SCCA event, Cabin Fever, part of the South Atlantic Road Racing Championship, which is a hugely popular regional series with Spec Miata fields that are uber intense. So I think this is an absolutely perfect way to give some people a little bit of extra practice if they want before that event comes up. And for us, we get to call some absolutely stunning racing. And weather out there looks nice air temp wise. Track temp, it's not too bad right now, is it?
Yeah, 95 is actually pretty cool for a track temp here at Sebring International Raceway. But one of the complications of this track, Greg, is that the track temp varies wildly depending on the concrete or the pavement. It's going to heat up and cool down a lot quicker on the blacktop than it would on the concrete sections. That concrete will retain heat a lot longer when things cool off. So that's just another one of the dynamics. You mentioned the bumps, but it's also just the change in grip level from one corner to the next. It's hardly the same in two subsequent corners.
Yeah, that's very true, and that's exactly what we're talking about. Is there's so many times at this facility where you've got to be really ahead of the game, knowing that when I hit this patch, I'm going to gain grip. When I lose that, I'm going to lose grip. Or when I hit this concrete patch, I'm going to get some flat slides. And you just got to really be anticipating things to the nth degree here. And that's one of the things that makes this place so challenging. Everybody talks about the bumps, but it's a long lap, Kyle. It's got some great overtaking areas, many of them populated with those diabolical bumps. But there's also opportunities for some creative overtaking as well. And of course, with these bumps and all these transitions, you always hope you can force one of your competitors into a little bit of a mistake that'll let you sneak by.
Yeah, certainly. And qualifying is underway right now, just under 10 minutes left to go. And there's a ton of drivers here that we're used to seeing up at the pointy end. And I'm looking for where Court Schmidt is on track at the moment because he's got a great camera with him on board today. Here he is in 7th at the moment. And here is what he's got on his home rig here. A couple cameras showcasing his pedal cam here as well as his full-on Full Send Sims rig, Greg. This is a great perspective, and it kind of shows all the action that's involved, especially in the footwork here as he works through the middle sector of the track.
Yeah, and you absolutely have to love it, doing the full heel and toe. What to me, racing and that, I call the motorsports ballet is truly all about. Yeah, paddle shift and all that's nice, but this is where you truly have to be one with the car. And I just love to see it continue to play out in this type of racing here. And the guy that we almost have to be looking at, I think, as somebody who's going to potentially be right in the hunt for this pole is Camden Hibbett. In the last 2 rounds, Daytona and the Glen, he has put his car on pole in both of those races. He's been uber fast in qualifying, struggled a little bit in some of the racing, had a good run at the Glen with a 2nd in the first race and then a 5th from that pole in the 2nd race. But at Daytona, where he had pole in that first race, he slipped to 22nd. And that kind of leads into one of the things we're talking about here a bit, Kyle, with this championship is at this point, when we're done here, we will have completed the first half of the season, is consistency. Wins are nice, but it's the guys, even if they haven't really won a bunch, it's the guys that are getting good finishes, whether they're wins or not, in both races of an event, and not having one good one and then one absolutely nowhere finish. And Jordan Rixagrani suffered that a little bit after an amazing start to the season when he got to Daytona. But because of the drops, he was able to maintain a small point lead, sort of the same story at the most recent race at the Glen, which I had to miss, obviously, but I watched it with great interest. And I mean, the battle right now between him and Nicholas Rice-Puto is 6 points at this stage when you factor in the drop. So and he's been really good in qualifying as well, but you've got to stay in this hunt through the entire race, don't you?
Yeah, and perhaps there's a home field advantage. Jordan Rixagrani, a Floridian, and this is a track that he's gotten some experience on even as recently as last fall when he competed in Toyota GR Cup North America and pulled a second out of it in his only his second race weekend. That was incredibly impressive, but we'll see if he can match that performance here tonight. We've seen him up at the front before, but he's going to have to beat his own teammate tonight, Morgan Burkhardt, again, looking very impressive in that number 40.
Yeah, and Burkhardt, obviously, really, the first couple of races, he was there more in spirit than he really was because of focusing on Daytona and his real-world racing. But when he came back last weekend after being freed up with a vengeance, I think he got a win in a second, as I recall. So we knew he was going to be right back at it again. And right now, tops the order, as always, not by much, but is up on the sharp end of things at this point. But Nathan Nicholson looking really impressive here, second right now.
Yeah, this is a name I don't believe we've seen here in this series just yet. So this is a very interesting driver to pop into the series right at its apex here at the halfway point. To have him jump in, obviously wouldn't be going for the championship, even with the drops considered most likely, but throw him in as a wild card. I don't think anyone up here knows how he's going to race, and he could absolutely kind of toss a wrench into things. Colin Weiss as well in the 201. Another PRG team car, so teammates with Burkhardt and with Jordan Rixagrani. Could he be another one of those wild cards up there running 7th in qualifying?
Yeah, he's doing a really stout job right now. And, obviously, if you get your team cars to sort of surround you a little bit here, you're going to be loving that type of momentum. I just saw somebody in the background have a quick little half spin there at the hairpin. You can see Olivier Piatek tucked right in behind Rice-Puto right now, or Zach Calipatri, I think, that they are following through here right now. Getting back to our story of being able to just continually bring in points, the guy who's really done that in many ways better than anybody else is Beans Forster. You think about, he had, some tough qualifying in the first couple of races and put up some points. You think about Daytona and the Glen, qualified 12th at Daytona, back in 8th at the Glen, and when others around him got caught up in scrums and melees and incidents, he was able to somehow get his way through it and was able to produce podium finishes, including a win at Daytona and a podium and a 7th at the Glen. And that's got him solidly 3rd in the points right now. And, if you find yourself back in the order a little bit, you've got to figure out a way to get to the front. Yeah,
I love this onboard shot over the shoulder here of Forster. Watch him through turn 1 here. Watch the bumps, and you see how much that car is blasting through turn 1, bouncing over the edges and out a little bit wide there. Got two tires in the dirt, but he'll keep it on course. The turn 1 and turn 17 Sunset Bend are perhaps some of the bumpiest in North American motorsport, and you're going to go for a ride through there. It's very lane specific, though. You can change up your line and have a much smoother corner, but I don't know if it's always faster. Sometimes you have to commit to the bumps to go as fast as you want to go.
Well, and that's it, and that's what I was talking about too, with shape-shifting from a successful pass to a big incident, is if you make your move and then the guy in front of you squeezes you a little bit, gets you off of that really smooth line relative to everything else, now one of those bumps can pitch you into him, pitch you into a wall. If you're on the outside, same kind of a story. So you've really, that's what I was talking about. This, really, to me, successful racing here, whether it's one lap in qualifying or a race, it's all about anticipating the bumps, anticipating where grip is.
Jordan Rixagrani goes to the top of the board over his teammate by about a 10th and a half. It's a 2:33.918, so he's the only driver to get down into the 2:33 mark. Also wanted to point out some information from Greg Ginsburg, who's providing it to us. Thanks, Greg. That Nathan Nicholson is running MX5 Cup this year, so that would explain why he's up at the pointy end. And apparently he was in the top 4 on the last lap, or very close to it, until he got turned around and wrecked out, which checks out, I think. So he's third, and I think he'll absolutely be a factor in this race.
Yeah, well, I mean, just the pace he's showing right now. I mean, he, really within easily 2/10 of Morgan Burkhardt right now. And I'll tell you, that 15/100ths gap between Rixigrini and Burkhardt in these cars is pretty stout here. I mean, you think about from Nicholson to Soto, it's 81,000ths, and that's just how close it is. So again, and remember Rixigrini, Kyle, at the opener here, which was at Sebring, he had a couple of absolutely superb races and a stout qualifying. He loves this place.
Yeah, he does. And like I mentioned, had some success here in the real world in Toyota GR Cup machinery, but obviously knows how to get it done in the simulator as well. Under 2 minutes left here in qualifying, so if you haven't already started your final lap, you're not going to get to finish it. Again, with iRacing's heat format, you don't get to complete a lap unless you can finish the lap before the time runs out. Olivier Piatek has yet to put a lap in, and he's working his way through Le Mans here, turn 16. And he's got to get a time up on the board. He'll be starting at least 32nd. Skip Rock Jr. isn't even on track. He will not get a qualifying lap in. So he'll start from the tail as well.
Yeah, I think I saw Wayne Buttermore out there, who also needs to get this lap in before time elapses to be able to get some sort of a time here. But Piatek has always been one of those guys up at the sharp end of things. At the Glen qualified third. So let's see what he's going to be able to do here. As he comes out, there's that big bump right under the bridge. Negotiated that beautifully right to that wall, that little climb, and then drop right here. And then hard acceleration. Where does he go? Does he string together a lap? That's a worthy one for him. Here he does. Jumps up into the 6th spot, Kyle.
Yeah, that's a good lap. Again, Skip Rock Jr. will not complete a lap. Neither will Andrew Gilliland or Trace Hance. They'll all start from the tail. Wayne Buttermore is also not going to complete a lap. He's only down at turn 7 and need to be essentially through Jean de Bienne right now just to complete a lap. So he won't get there. Christian Rice-Budo won't get there. Noah Jackson won't get there. So there's a lot of cars, about a dozen, Greg, that are going to start without a time, 33rd on back.
Yeah, it's a great point. And maybe one of the guys who right now is back there away is sitting in 17th, John Reyes. We have seen him this year pull out some amazing races from that far back in the field and find himself up in top 5 contention. And it's almost like the first time that happened when he came from way back at Daytona and leaped his way up. He started without a time in 34th, ended up 6th. Ended up 20th in the first race, then went from 20th to 6th in the second race. But when he got up there, Kyle, I think it was a heck of a moment for him because he was able to stay there on pure pace. And I think that was really sort of an eye-opening awakening for him, saying, you know what, I belong. And he has really shown some speed with Jorge Ortiz, one of his teammates, being very fast. Obviously, he's got the people around him to really keep him up there.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the things we always have to talk about when we come to Sebring with a field this big, it's 42 cars deep, Greg, is that it doesn't matter if you have pace if you can't finish the race. And we've seen a lot of turn 1 incidents here. So that risk versus reward at Sebring, especially with that wide front straightaway that narrows down to effectively a lane and a half wide at the apex, that's another big consideration here because we see a lot of drivers not even finish the first lap.
Exactly. That bottleneck is notorious in real-world racing and sim racing because it's so enticing to just try and chuck it down in there. And, to me, if you're in the inside line, you maybe give it a go. If you're out on the outside, to me, I would check up, stay wide, let things settle, and then probably have an opportunity to pick your way through a handful of cars and be able to make a big move. So, but it's all down to the strategy. These are short races. You can't afford to wait too long. There's no question about that.
Court Schmidt preparing for battle here in his simulator, and this is the calm before the storm. I hadn't run an iRacing race recently up until about the iRacing Rolex 24 a couple of weeks ago, and I forgot the jitters you get before getting in the race car. That's something also that I don't think a lot of people consider when they're using iRacing as a training tool, is it puts you in the same mindset as a driver on the grid ready to go racing. You have to clear your head and get ready to go do battle, because when we turn the green flag loose, you might not have to be on the hook for tens of thousands of dollars, but there's still some things on the line, including some great prizes at season's end, Greg.
Well, there really is. And, obviously we have to say a huge thank you to Full Send Sims and Cord Schmidt for coming up with the idea for this series. Their slogan is practice makes podium. And that's what Cord's idea with Sims is all about. Military sim building and training, and then a real world racer, combining those two and understanding if you get it right in the sim, you can do it on the track. So big thank you to Full Send Sims, our presenting sponsors, 3P Logistics and Final Turn Motorsports, as well as Wine County Motorsports, all of them being so good to us for so much. And as you said, some absolutely amazing gear that's going to be coming up. Ultra-wide monitor to the champion or the highest points finisher that hasn't already qualified for something like that. Second would get a Button Kicker Gamer Plus. Third, a Logitech G Pro X gaming headset. And of course, top three, no matter what, will always get trophies for the championship. And that's all courtesy of Cord, Full Send Sims, and these great sponsors. But time for us to take a look at our starting lineup on pole. Once again, the number 108 of Jordan Rixigrini, joined by his teammate Morgan Burkhardt, the number 40.
And row 2 is Nathan Nicholson, a newcomer to the championship, will roll off third in the 195. Josh Soto starts fourth in the 77.
Starting in the fifth spot in the 03, Nicholas Rice-Puto, who has worked his way up into second in the points, and Olivier Piatek will start sixth in the number 62.
Seventh place is Caleb Patry, the number 998, alongside Beans Forster, who rolls off eighth in the 23 car.
Starting ninth in the 201, very impressive in qualifying, Colin Weiss. And starting 10th, Andrew Wozencroft in the number 80.
Nice qualifying effort there for Wozencroft. Starting 11th, Jamison Huffman in the number 37. Camden Hibbett was so close to victory last week in race 2 at Watkins Glen. He starts 12th in the 132.
Starting 13th, the number 20 is Deacon Greenfield. We have seen some real blazing speed from him on occasion. Same story for Dean Dibdahl. He will start 14th in a 99.
And 15th place, Jorge Ortiz in the number 311. Max Bankin starts 16th in the 00.
Starting 17th, Jean Reyes, who we were talking about in that number 29, and Cord Schmidt will start 18th in the 172.
And starting 19th place, it will be Jordan Butler in the 72 car, and then Hayden Manis rolls off 20th in the number 65.
Starting 21st in the number 89 will be Jim Friedhofer, and starting 22nd in the 133, Michael Lafra.
And starting 23rd, it's Seth Spolman in the 042. Matt Friedman, 24th in the 198 car.
Starting 25th in the number 528 will be Richard Sawicki II. Starting 26th in the 144, Tristan Cadet.
27th place, Stephen Bleffin in the number 50. Rich Green starts 28th in the number 22.
Starting 29th in the 221 is Charles Vaccaro. Starting 30th in the 51, Ray Bleffin.
And 31st is Carson Neal, the 117. Sawyer Richards starts 32nd in the 125.
Starting 33rd in the 53 is Trace Hance. And James Newell will start 34th in the 123. That was Trace, who just had to end up somehow in pit lane.
Yeah, Ayrton Grimm, I don't think is going to make the start either. Andrew Gilliland starts 36th in the number 91. Last couple rows are going to scroll on the bottom of the screen because we are about ready to turn them loose here at Sebring International Raceway. The next round of the Full Send Sims Spec Miata Series. Greg, two teammates on the front row, Jordan Rixigrini and Morgan Burkhardt, but Nathan Nicholson is right there to break up the party up front.
Yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see how this is going to play out and whether anybody will be able to split that duo up front. When they get to 1-2 together, it's really tough to get around on them here. Pace car is in. Barney, green flag in hand. 20 minutes of racing for race 1 of 2. We're green! Watch, as always, for that green nose of Piatek to do something, and he's kind of bottled up, just staying in line right now. Way down to the inside, a couple of cars, the 03 Rice-Puto there, trying to squeeze through. What an aggressive move, and contact already. Piatek just tapped, and around he goes.
And he spins. A couple other cars are going to get tagged as well. I think that's the 00 of Bankin, who's also spun at turn 1. But the vast majority of the field is on through. Burkhardt, Rixigrini lead into turn 3. Bit of a bottleneck a bit deeper in the field. Some side-by-side, and it looks like Stephen Bleffin's going to go around, but the rest of the field continues to roll. We've avoided at least the big one, like we're at Talladega, but a couple cars got tagged along the way.
Yeah, and unfortunately, Piatek, who is very quick, one of them, and considering where he was sitting, you can see there's that little bit of a gap of almost a second that's already built up between Burkhardt and Rixigrini. So it's going to really take some focus here by the guy sitting behind. Nicholson was the guy who made a really aggressive move to the inside. Why not? and it paid off. He sits third, Rice Puto up into fourth, and Patry cracks the top 5.
Deacon Greenfield in his virtual reality headset here in 11th place, started 13th, so he's picked up 2. One of those was the spinning Piatek, but he's got Beans Forster just up the road in the 23, then Jamison Huffman, Colin Weiss, as Cadman Hibbett grabs a spot from Dean Dibdahl and goes up to 6th.
What I love with those virtual headsets is you can still see that the driver turns and looks through the corner, and that's really important to understand. Eyes up and down range. And I just love that with that virtual headset. You can really see that head movement so well here as we're watching Deacon Greenfield right now. We saw some great speed from him. He's got potential to easily be up into this top 10 battle in short order here.
He does, and I think that's another great point to bring up, that virtual reality when you're turning your head left and right. That's something that's kind of subconscious that you're doing automatically, behind the wheel of a virtual reality car in iRacing, but it's something that directly translates to the real world as Colin Weiss has a slowdown cut penalty at Le Mans Curve.
Oh man, and he had qualified so well. Another guy looking really good right now is Jamison Huffman, the number 37, sits in the 8th spot and is in a really good scrap here with the 37 of Beans Forster. And again, Beans didn't get the qualifying that we know he's capable of, but every time he struggled a bit in qualifying, in the racing, he is able to find his way through, and he is attacking on Huffman right now.
Yeah, he absolutely is. Matt Friedman and Jordan Butler were side by side just behind them. Butler's going to clear for 11th. Andrew Wozencroft dropping down the order. He had a very strong qualifying effort, but holding on to this has been a bit of a challenge. Back up to 3rd place, though. Nicholson and Rice Puto. That got fierce and feisty through turn 1. It still is.
It absolutely is, and that's 4 position, and I think Rice Puto was saying, I've got a little bit more pace here, and he's watching those 2 up front start to ease away, and I think Rice Puto said, I'd rather have this in my hands at this point, Kyle.
Yeah, just going back and having a look at this, Rice Puto has a big run here on the 195 of Nicholson. He's going to pop out to the left here. Nicholson sees this run, doesn't block it off, but Rice Puto rather almost ran into the quarter panel as they slowed at different rates there. They did have a touch at the apex, but I think you're right. The Rice Puto driver, he knows that those front 2 are going to drive away without some intervention here shortly.
Well, and you can see, as you said, Greg Ginsberg informing us of Nicholson's success in the real world in the MX-5 Cup, and you can see his ability to big picture it there, knowing if he fought Rice Puto to the apex, they were going to lose a huge chunk of time and dip the brake, maybe to get the timing quite right, but dip the brake and just let Rice Puto slide through and tried not to really hurt any of their momentum at this point. Cool graphics there in Richard Sawicki's car, isn't it? That 528, sharp-looking car.
Yeah, it looks good, and you'll recognize that name from a Grid Life Touring Cup where he ran a Miata for a little while. He's transitioning it to run in Sunday Cup this season, but we should see him back in GLTC at a future time. But working 18th right now, up 7 spots in the first 2 laps. That's a pretty strong start here as he closes in on Wozencroft.
And it looks like the 29, Jean Reyes, there sitting in 16th. He too, as he always seems to do, he started 17th, got, caught a little bit on the start, but has already made up 5 spots from his lowest position. Once that green flag drops, Jean Reyes, he just knows how to pass cars. Absolutely,
and he's continuing to make progress on Court Schmidt just up the road in 15th place. He started 18th. He's up a few spots as well. You'd have to go back to Ayrton Grimm, Raymond Bleth, and Luke Law, Skip Brock Jr., and Christian Rice Puto to find out who hasn't really gained positions. And Skip Brock started at the tail of the field and in pit lane with damage already, so this did not go the way that he was hoping, and it really started in qualifying.
Yeah, it was a tough go for him. And there he sits, and he had a really, after showing so strongly at Daytona where he qualified 7th and then got a 2nd and a 3rd, just missing out on his first win on both of those events. It just kind of all went, pineapple shape for him at the Glen. And I'm sure for him to come out now after struggle like this in the early going is going to be big frustration. Oh, a big wide run there by Rice Puto. And, even though you keep your boot in it, you run wide that far, get on that dirt, the car starts to bounce a little bit, you just lose a little bit of momentum, and a big off there by Charles Vaccaro.
Oh, that thing isn't even going to roll. That was a big impact there for Vaccaro. Let's see what happened to him. Oh man, this is actually, I thought this was earlier in the straightaway. This is closing in on turn 1. This was right down the middle of the straight. Let's go back a little further. alongside the 22 of Rich Green, and I think they're just going to collide and bam.
Yeah, Green clearly thought he had, oh, what a hit. Green clearly thought he had cleared him and started to drift over to the right, and you have to make sure, that's where that track awareness is everything here. You know what? These guys right now, Rice Budo and Nicholson, that margin had opened up to about 1.4 seconds, and they've been able to get it down to within a second now at this stage. And they're bringing Patry and Hibbett right with them at this stage. So if they just continue this kind of, I mean, they just trimmed another 10th, Kyle. So we could have a good 6-scrum car battle here. Dipdahl's not that far out of it, is he?
No, about 9/10 back, which is within drafting distance here as well. I think one of the things we've seen this season is the slight modifications and changes to the fixed setup that we're running has made the entire field more competitive. The first couple of seasons, these things were so laden with weight that they really couldn't carry a lot of speed, and they struggled to draft up to each other because they would just lose so much ground in the corners. But now the slight adjustments that have been made season over season, refinements to the setup, have really made these things racy. And if you're within about 8/10 of a second to 1.2 seconds, yeah, you can reel somebody back in with draft. That's what Miata racing is like on these big tracks, and that's what we're seeing here. And it's just half a second now between Rice Budo and Rick Sebring.
Yeah, it is close, and just loving to see this as they are taking it to these two teammates, closing in on them. And then, of course, it's how long do you wait to actually make some sort of a major move? Catching's one thing, passing's another. And even though this is obviously a multi-turn, 17-turn road course, it's got such long sections here. It's not always a track where you want to lead as you come in, particularly into the Lamont curve to start that last lap. Is that Kurt Schmidt having a moment?
Yeah, and he's gone for a loop. But hold that thought. We're going to go back live because Rice Budo and Nicholson are trading spots down here at turn 1. We'll go back and look at Court Spin in a moment, but they got right to the leaders and then started battling. I'm not sure that that's the strategy I'd be employing right now. Contact.
Boy, and he's got to be careful rejoining, and I'll tell you what, Caleb Patry and Camden Hibbett showing some real awareness there, understanding that as the 0-3 of Rice Budo rejoined, he may not be in total control, and gave him a fair amount of room. So nice move there. Look at this move by Reyes down underneath, and that's where the contact came with Court.
Yeah, and
Wozencroft, what a save.
And a great job by Court to keep the car pointed the right direction. Whoa, and he's now 3 wide with Michael Loughran, and I think that's James Newell in the 123. So battle is still on back here for 20th. No damage though, he'll continue. No significant damage at least. Road, Matt Friedman, John Reyes, Andrew Wozencroft, and Richard Sawicki. This is a 4-driver quartet of energy, isn't it?
After it here. They are seriously getting after it here. And there's Wozencroft now, big dive up the inside of Friedman. And now, but Friedman's going to have position here as we get up to Cunningham, which is turn 10 on this legendary circuit. Now through Collier.
How have we burned up half the race already? There's only 10 minutes to go. It feels like we just started it, but it's only an 8-lap race with these long lap times here. And Nathan Nicholson has, he's ditched the caboose of Caleb Patry and Camden Hibbett, and he's right up at the front of the pack of the locomotives here with Morgan Burkhardt and Jordan Rick Sebring.
Yeah, and I mean, as soon as there's that little tap that knocked the 0-3 of Rice Budo a little bit sideways, it opened that gap up. He doesn't have to worry about what's going on behind. And you know what he's doing here is reminiscent in his debut of what Cam Eben did at the Glen last weekend.
Yeah, Cam he showed up and just put on a show up front on attack and defense, and was absolutely a ringer there at Watkins Glen, so to speak. But maybe Nicholson can be that here. Dives down the inside of Rick Sebring and Burkhardt, and he's going to go to the lead. And I don't think they're going to fight it, the PRG boys, but we'll see. Here comes Sebring back on the inside through turn 17.
Yeah, he squared him up pretty good, didn't he? And now they're going to exit, and it's going to be pretty much a side by each run here. And Burkhardt right now looking, okay, do I go with my teammate? He says, no, I'm going with the guy that's going to get me in front of my teammate if at all possible. Ooh, a little touch back there, too. I think that may have been Caleb Patry just grazing the wall before he turned into turn 1. And look at that. Nicholson leads, and Burkhardt was not able to get through on Rick Sebring.
It's going to drag Camden Hibbett right up to 4th place, though.
Yep.
He learned a lot last week, I think, running up there with Morgan Burkhardt and Cam Eben. Cam is an 11,000 iRating driver in iRacing. It's one of the highest iRatings that's ever been achieved, meaning he's one of the most skilled drivers on the service. And he was putting on a bit of a display there, and I think Camden was absorbing some of that information as far as how you can attack on these big, fast racetracks in this car without hurting your own progress forward. So Cam's sitting here fourth, and with 3 drivers ahead of him, and he's got a couple behind him. Now you're going to start to pick your battles here in these final 3 or 4 laps.
Yeah, and it's really a matter of just wrapping your head around momentum, isn't it? It's always an exchange of energy, and if you get too aggressive with energy at one point, it's going to cost you at another point. Watch this move here. Rice Puto down underneath Patry. Patry is going to try and stay, and there's a little touch. He got knocked sideways, then straightened it out, got into Rice Puto, and that has allowed Dean Dibdahl to pick up 2 spots and scoot his way on through, and looks like Forster's going right with him.
Yeah, that got a bit awkward there. Gives Dibdahl a top 5 shot. Again, he's been another one of those drivers, like you mentioned with Jean Reyes, that just finds his way up into the mix. And he's been doing this for the last couple of seasons, progressively getting more and more threatening for those in the top 5, as Jamison Huffman is now launching an assault on the back of Forster and Patry here for 7th and 6th.
Oh, this is great stuff. Obviously, this is back just a little bit. Doesn't mean the racing is any less intense. These guys are putting on just an incredible show right now.
In the past, we've done this track a number of times in the series over the various seasons, and in the past, the action's been mostly at the front. We've got it everywhere today.
Yeah, that's a good point.
These front 4, nose to tail, this is where the chess match starts.
It's interesting here, isn't it, with the 2 teammates bookended by people who are out for their own at this stage. And again, now we watch Rick Segrini square up the exit of Sunset Bend 17. This time Burkhardt swings to the right and goes to give his teammate a little bump right here, try and shove him past on Nicholson. Camden is going to try and make his way through, but Nicholson having none of that. But once again, you can see right there how Nicholson played that, knowing, okay, we're going to get past, and he lost maybe a car length as opposed to 3 or 4.
Yeah, everyone went with Rick Segrini that time. No one wanted to sit with the new kid at the lunch table in the cafeteria. They all just drove right by him. And Nicholson will line up with the 132. They'll have to try again. Dean Dibdahl is catching the pack of this pack as well. A little bit of a stretch back to Patry, 1.27 seconds. So if once this group starts to fight again, maybe he can get dragged back in. But for now, it's a 4-horse race for first place.
Yeah, a good one at that, isn't it? This is such fun to watch here. And the 2 teammates, once again, running 1-2. And that just really makes it more difficult for those that are pursuing. But the guy who's closing it up is a little bit is Dibdahl in that white number 99. He's showing some good speed, running almost identical lap times, maybe even a little bit better when he gets the opportunity to draft here. And he's opened that margin back to Patry up to, just about a 1.5 seconds.
It's these big tracks with this, you have to require so much racecraft here. I think there's such a big difference between being able to hot lap and being able to race. By example of that would be Dean Dibdahl's best lap is a 2:35.0. Jordan Rick Segrini's best lap is 9/10 quicker. But here's Dean, 1.6 back from the lead after running for 6 laps. So maybe not a hot lapper, but he's absolutely in contention to race for the win of this race. So he's put himself in a good spot. Caleb Patry's on pit lane now, Greg. I think he's had another incident. Let's go back and have a look.
Well, right behind him. Beans. Blew it up.
Yep. Motor wet, downshifted too early, and the engine let go.
You can see Beans almost hit him, so he had to back off, and that has cost him in terms of some time and distance at this stage. Up front, these 2 separated by 8/1000ths on the track right now, and obviously doing everything they can to try and break away. And Nicholson and Hibbett having none of that, staying absolutely in lockstep with them right now.
So 4 minutes and 30 seconds to go. That's going to be 2 laps left because we're running about 2:36 a lap around here. So 2 laps to go. Got 34 corners, and again, I said this is where the chess match starts. Front 2 are playing chess. I think Nicholson's got to play checkers if he wants to win this one.
I think you're absolutely right, and obviously he has no issue if he sees an opening in going through. He's not working with anybody per se. He'd love to have Camden Hibbett, if he makes a move, come up and give him a little tap to try and drive him through, depending upon where it happens. But I'm just really fascinated to see how Nathan Nicholson here plays this one out. These two guys in front have, in this series anyway, have been really successful as they've run 1-2 running as teammates. And let's see what Nicholson's going to be able to do to try and slice him up a bit.
And it kept Dean at arm's length back there, about 9/10 back from Camden. But Rice Budo and Forster are now almost 3 seconds back. So I don't think, oh, spin. Noah Jackson around at turn 3. And they were having a pretty fierce fight up until this point back here for position between himself and, didn't get what the other car number was on this, but they were 3 wide. That doesn't work.
Yeah, I think that it may have been Evan Hamidman.
One of those cars is the 77 of Soto.
Yeah.
The other is the 123 of James Newell.
James Newell, there you go. Yeah, they were trying to pass. Newell had just been overtaken, and once again, just not giving everybody enough space on track here. Nicholson now has dropped back by about 0.4 of a second to that duo up front, and I wonder if he's paying a little bit too much attention to his mirrors right now. And Hibbett sitting right back there, thinking Hibbett's going to try something at this stage.
If Rick Segrini and Morgan Burkhardt get any closer together, they're going to grow an umbilical cord. They've just been locked together for this entire race. And, this makes me wonder, if they get separated, are they going to be as effective, or are they more effective as this unit? The problem is they're not going to be allowed to do this for this next lap and a half. Nicholson and Hibbett are going to break this up at some point.
Yeah, did you see going through that great corner sequence of John DeBien and Lamar, how Burkhardt opened his lines up a little bit? And I think he had, a good run going, and playing it wisely, opted not to try and do something on Jordan, knowing that they had to survive this next lap. But boy, as Nicholson closed that down now, he is right on the rear bumper of Burkhardt as we headed to turn 1 for the last time here in this first race. Camden Hibbett just a couple of car lengths back, watching what's happened. Dibdahl now has drifted backward just a little bit. And I wonder if he's thinking, I wonder if Dibdahl has actually said, I don't want to be too close. If this goes bad here and cars are every which way but loose, maybe I can do something here, as Rice Budo dives underneath Beans Forster, and Beans absolutely refusing to give it to him at the exit of 3.
Yeah, they're still side by side through 5 now, and Forster snags 6th place. All the while up at the front, this is now the countdown that we're all waiting for. Nicholson goes left. This is interesting. Again, he's kind of a wild card. We've seen how these races have played out in past seasons. It always comes down to that run between turn 16 and 17. But maybe Nicholson's got something these front two haven't seen yet.
Well, it's going to be showtime here in just a moment, isn't it? And just Deacon Greenfield has fought his way up into 9th. So another great drive from Deacon here, and Jordan Butler up into 11th as well. Reyes 13th. So these guys are coming up, but here's the story, and here's the first move as Burkhardt went for a defense, but look at Camden Hibbett just diving down underneath Nicholson, gets the nose in front, but it's only briefly here, as now things change right back up again. Nicholson back into 3rd, but look what that did to the amount of distance they have. So now these two, they have got to go after it. Do you think at this point Kyle Hibbett has said the battle's for 3rd, not for the win?
It seems like that. I think he felt like he needs to be 3rd, not 4th, to be able to have a real shot at this win, but he wasn't able to get the job done. So now I would be transitioning this immediately to pushing this 195. We're not done yet. Turn 17 is where we decide this battle, but they're going to be done if they fight each other, so they're going to have to work together. I think maybe Hibbett gives them a go here. If he can push that 195 past Morgan Burkhardt, then he would be 3rd. So he's got to put himself in position here, and here comes that chess match down the backstretch that we've waited for lap after lap.
That big defense move by Burkhardt. It was Nicholson who actually got the better drive out of Lamar, and I think Burkhardt knew it, moved over. Now, does anybody pop out, try and make the big arc? Here we go! Into 17. Bumps be damned. It's time to go for the win here at Sebring. Rick Segrini covers it. Burkhardt went outside in, didn't get it done. Nicholson tucks right in behind. Camden Hibbett running way wide at the exit. At the line, it is going to be Rick Segrini, but by an incredibly scant margin, I think. Nicholson third, Hibbett fourth, Dipdahl fifth, Forster comes through in sixth, then Huffman, then Rice Pudo. And the margin of victory now, it shows as 51 thousandths of a second. What an absolutely stellar last corner. We always see that here at Sebring, and there's lots of great racing going on yet.
Yeah, it still is. We just saw Andrew Giltland blow the motor. He's just going to have to coast to the finish. Wayne Buttermore's got Court Schmidt packed up behind him here. Final corner for these two.
Oh, Court, beautiful lunge down to the inside. And that got Buttermore. He committed, got in a little hot, went out too wide, and couldn't get it back to the apex. And so Court Schmidt is going to come through and pick up another spot here with a great pass late in the going here. Wow, that was just some great racing. Way back in the pack as well. You got to love what we're seeing here, as always. And the guy you got to feel for a little bit, Olivier Piatek, 25th.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate start here. I think Nicholson had a plan, and it just didn't pan out because he hasn't had the experience of these finishes like these front two had. He shifted up. He was ready to carry this momentum out of the final corner, but he just ran out of torque, and Morgan Burkhardt was in his way. He had a little bit more torque, and that 40 car wasn't there. He was carrying a lot more speed than the leader was, and he might have had a shot at it there, but there is effectively your margin of victory, 51 thousandths of a second at north of 110 miles an hour across the stripe.
Just incredibly close. I mean, you know, the top three covered by less than 0.2 of a second. And I think you're right with Nicholson. He had a great run, but I think his line was a long line through turn 17 as well, as he faded way out wide, tried to square up underneath. But at a certain point, Kyle, you try a move like that, and suddenly you find yourself just traversing maybe a smidge too much distance. And you talked about it. Suddenly, that great torque he had just started to bleed off because of the long run.
And I think some of it comes down to the experience in the sim in this particular environment. Again, we've run this racetrack, this combination with this particular setup for the car a number of times, something that Rick Segrini's done, something that Burkhardt has done. Yeah. You can have all the experience in the world that you want, which Nicholson certainly has, but it doesn't translate necessarily to that particular moment in time that these guys have practiced over and over and over again. And Greg, they're going to do it again in race number 2. We'll see what Nicholson's learned for the second race.
Yeah, and you can be sure he has done a great job of studying. I think Camden Hibbett, once again, you talked about how he went to school on Cam Eben. I think he had another opportunity to watch that here. So, yeah, I'm excited to see how the second of the 2 double-header races are going to play out here. And I wanted to point out, everybody, this my unusual attire here. I apologize for that with this big, ugly strap here. I got a big sling on my arm because I have a brand-new shoulder in my right shoulder. After some surgery a week ago Monday. So that's why I wasn't able to be part of it last week. And you found it very capable fill-in and somebody who generated some great humor as well. But, man, I missed it. I watched it for sure, and it's good to be back.
This is just the first step in your Ship of Theseus moment, isn't it? We're going to get the next one done, and soon you'll be mechanical, and you'll be beating all of us at all sorts of sports. But I'm glad you're feeling better.
Right?
Throw a baseball at 250 miles an hour. It should be a lot of fun. We've got our second race coming up here shortly, Greg. So one of the things we also saw in race 1 was that turn 1 went pretty well compared to how it's gone in the past. Usually, it's like the Daytona duels in NASCAR. One of the times we go into turn 1, it's usually very clean. The next, it's usually a mess. What do you think is going to happen this time in race 2?
I think it's going to be a mess. And I think it basically comes down to, you don't get another race after this. So particularly if you had a little bit of an issue in that first race, you're going to try something drastic to try and make up some spots early. And I'll be absolutely pleased, but must admit a bit surprised if we don't get a much bigger incident down at turn 1.
And for a couple of drivers, Olivier Piatek included, bad race 1, had some crash damage. We saw Court Schmidt have a spin. There's some others that will be fighting from the tail of the field. How aggressive do you want to be on the start when you know that there could be chaos up ahead? And do you wait back a little ways to let the smoke clear before you try to make your mission to the front?
Well, and I think, that's a great question, but we've seen Piatek multiple times already this season. When he gets that great start, he seems to be able to time it to perfection, makes that quick move, and I'm not sure where he's going to line up. If he's inside going into one, I think he's going to go for it. But I think you have to be able to, at a certain point, go, this isn't going to work. I didn't get enough of a run. This door is going to close if you're on the inside, and ease back, find a slot. If you're on the outside, that's where I'd be really looking to make a big move, but then don't necessarily just stuff it in around the outside. Maybe check up a little bit, wait for somebody to create some carnage, because it's likely going to happen, and then give yourself a little bit of space, Kyle, to be able to pick your way through. We'll see.
We will see. In about 1 minute and 42 seconds, we go racing again in another 20-minute race here at Sebring International Raceway. You talked about the schedule. We've returned to this racetrack a couple of times a season. This is our second time here this season, but upcoming on the calendar, we've got a really fun calendar this season. We're at Lime Rock Park next week, which is, as we pointed out at the beginning of the season, Greg, kind of an outlier. It's a small track. Everywhere else we've gone is big, flat out, and fast. We'll follow it up with National Park of Speed at Road America, back to Homestead where we kicked off at our round 2. Then it's Road Atlanta and VIR to finish out the season.
Absolutely, and the thing is it might be a lot shorter. We call it the bull ring or road racing, however you want to describe it, Racing Center of the East. But just because it's short, it's still a momentum track. And it's the same scenario. It's just you got a much smaller racing surface in terms of distance to get it done. And if you're a little nervous about it, if you're not that familiar with Lime Rock and running the classic track, I believe this Thursday the driver's school will be for Lime Rock. So 2 reasons to think about, 3 to think about these driver schools. 1, just to hone your craft. Whether you've been doing this a while or whether you're relatively new, it can help you smooth things out, sort things out. Secondly, it can get you familiar with that racetrack if you're not familiar with it. That's one of the reasons the schools are kind of keyed to happen in consequence with the next event, the actual race event. And thirdly, with the new policy that we have in terms of how penalties are discussed, we've got driver points, and if you get up to where you've got 10 points, you have to start from pit lane at the next race. However, if you do a driver school or a one-on-one session, all your driver points are erased. You can start where you qualify. So there's some pretty good motivation there to get into one of those schools. But mainly to me is just get better. Practice. Makes podium. I've heard that.
I've heard that too. It's funny how that happens. Lime Rock, also, as we talk about the nuances of each individual racetrack, Lime Rock's another track that looks really simple on paper, but is not in the real world, and it races in a very unique way. So we'll get to watch that next week, but first we got to get through Sebring. We have one more race left to do tonight, Greg, and we're about ready to get down to the grid. Starting lineup will be on the left-hand side of the screen, and we've got 42 cars again gearing up. Christian Rice-Sputo will start at the very tail, and he's got a lot of Miatas ahead of him up the road.
Oh man, a huge field. This has been by far and away, we've just started off this year with a massive field of cars at virtually every event, and we absolutely love to see it. Speaks volumes about this championship, but what it does do, Kyle, and we talked about how it's so crucial to be able to be consistent when you're earning points, as we have a look here at Morgan Burkhardt getting ready to go. If you do struggle in one of the races and go all the way to the back, guess what? You now might have 10 or 15 more cars than we had last year that you've got to work your way through. And I'll tell you, one of our favorites is this guy, Andrew Gilliland, this young man. He's just, we watch the onboards, and he is young in age, but he has got a mature head on his shoulders, and just watching how comfortable he is with the heel and toe downshifts as he works his way around these tracks. It really is fun to see the future of sim racing and, of course, eventually real world racing, I think, in good hands.
Well, here's a little twist I wasn't anticipating, is that, just got some information, Nathan Nicholson is the co-founder of the PRG team and his teammates with Burkhardt and Rick Segrini. Does that clear up maybe some of the patience that we saw behind those front two all night?
Yes, it does, in huge chunks. It really now makes some sense that he was aggressive, but not anywhere near as aggressive as I thought he might be if he were just an outlier.
And it also explains Camden Hibbett's desire to get rid of him down at Cunningham, because he knew that he might play ball with those front two rather than go by. So that clears things up. Cam obviously knew that. So we'll see if he makes any other decisions this time that to break up those front three, or if Dean Dibdahl can potentially have a shot at it. He will roll off in 5th place. Beans Forster in 6th. Good starts for these guys. Nicholas Rice-Puto will have to roll off from 8th. He'll be fun to watch carve through that top 5.
Well, I wonder right now if maybe Beans and Camden might not be thinking about, okay, let's try and work this one together a little bit, because now as you pointed out, you got 3 teammates up at the sharp end of things, and if Beans can sneak around on Dibdahl, then he can get up there with Camden, and they can maybe try and do something here. And let's not forget, we saw great speed from Nicholas Rice-Puto. He just got tapped a couple of times at the wrong place, wrong time kind of a deal, and got dropped off just a little bit. But he certainly has speed. So, and then, Deacon Greenfield, I don't think we've seen the best yet from Colin Weiss either, that 201.
No, and how about Jordan Butler? He started pretty far down the order. I think nearly at the tail of the field in race 1. He made it to 11th. But he should be a fun driver to watch carve through the top 10 as well. Andrew Wozencroft will cling to 14th. Richard Sawicki's up a whole bunch of spots as well. Joshua Soto is another one that didn't qualify. He rolls off 17th. So a lot of the mission for the guys up front is just to stay where they were, but the mission's half over for Soto and Butler. They want that top 10, and they're coming for it.
Yeah, they got to get after it. And I'll tell you what, the other guy that just continues to impress, Jean Reyes, he drifted back 3 spots at the start, then fought his way up into 12th, just knocking on the door of the top 10. So he'd be somebody, I could see him and Soto, say, teaming up a little bit and trying to come through the pack. So it's going to be fascinating to see what happens. But the bigger question is, now that we know track temperature, pretty much the same as what it was for race 1. Now that we know those top 3 are all teammates, what does Hibbett, Dibdahl, Forster, Huffman, Rice-Puto, what are they going to be able to do to sort of crack that nut?
A tough trio to separate, as we've seen.
Yes, it is. Wow.
It's a tough nut to crack. It's a closed-up pistachio if I've ever seen one.
Yes, it is.
How do you get those open, by the way?
It's a risk of breaking teeth or pliers.
Okay, that was my next question. Anyway, cars rounding turn 17. Greg, take it away. Race 2, a full Sim Spec Miata here from Sebring.
All right, the teammates once again, as they were for race 1, Burkhardt alongside pole sitter Rick Segrini. Green flag flies, and again, it is Rick Segrini getting a little bit of help here from Nicholson down to the inside. That looks like Nicholas Rice-Puto is going to try and make a big lunge move. Everybody's sorting it out smoothly. Oh, and there goes Piatek again. Got a great start, and I don't know if he just got tapped or if he just lost it. Here we go, big hit there on driver's right, off to the left of the screen. Couple other cars involved, and a few more spearing off here.
Yeah, you called it, Greg. Troublesome turn 1 for a couple of drivers. The rest make it through. Jordan Rick Segrini and Hibbett now lead the way. No, Hibbett's dropped to 3rd now. Burkhardt, Rick Segrini, Hibbett. Nicholson's now fending off Dean Dibdahl and Jamison Huffman in the 37.
Yeah, and this kind of went a little awkward there, didn't it, for the 195 of Nicholson? But you knew they were going to be attacking, and Dibdahl has shown really good pace here. He's not just going to go quietly. Has to tuck in now as they start this sort of serpentine weave now through Fangio. I really don't like this new part of the track. I like the old slightly tighter original Fangio chicane. You really had to throw the car through there. Now it's just sort of guided through. But nonetheless, Nicholson able to get the move done on Dibdahl, and that now has Jamison Huffman, that purple and black car, diving down. Who's that? Colin Weiss, who had a great run in that first race, caught out. Don't know whether he got tapped. That was by himself, Kyle.
Yeah, we'll have a look at a couple things here. It's early in the race, so we've got an opportunity. First thing I wanted to look at is the start that Olivia Piatek had. Look at him carving his way through this mess. Inside, outside, 4 wide, 5 wide. That was never going to work. The 29 tags him here. He goes around for a spin. Then Court Schmidt is in the middle of the rest of this here. If I can find him, he somehow got involved in this right here. There's some contact, but I think he was even before that. Watch ahead of him here. Spinning. The 23 of Forster went around. So he managed to get through it with some damage, and then Colin Weiss most recently. This is down here at Cunningham. He did get assistance. That was from Soto, I believe, in the 77.
I think you're right. Yep. Well, there you have it. It's been an eventful
we're not even done with lap one
here. I know, and it's still crazy. But now it's the Burkhardt, Ricksagrini, and Camden Hibbett have themselves a little bit of a lead. And look at the run that Jamison Huffman is putting in here in the early, going up into 4th.
Yeah, great run there for Huffman in the 37. Here's Deacon Greenfield in 8th, up 1 spot from where he started. He's got Matt Friedman behind him. Jean Reyes just ahead of him in that 29 continues his climb forward as well. Look at him working that wheel there as he gets over the bumps through turn 1.
How did we lose Nicholson back into 10th?
Oh, that's a great question.
Yeah.
It was on the previous lap because I don't see the time down in the red, so had to have been before this. And it was over in Jean de Bienne here somewhere, I think.
All right, there's Jean. Here we go into Jean de Bienne.
Oh, could have been a slowdown potentially. Let's watch
Here's
this
the
exit.
Lamont curve, yeah.
Could have been right there. Does he pull
Right
off to the
there.
right?
I think he got, you're right, yeah. Oh,
Maybe not. There it is.
yeah, he just got too much of that curb. And what a shame. Now he's got work to do.
Yeah, I'll say.
He has got some serious work to do at this stage. Huffman sitting in 4th. Dibdal in that 5th spot. And back in the order. Look at this fierce battling here. It's Piatek trying to come back with Rice Pudo.
How about where he started? 40th. He's now 22nd. And we're about 4.5 miles into this race.
Yeah. And he's running right now with the number 21 as well.
Grimm.
Yep. Who had a tough start in that first race, but is not too bad, up into 23rd. And here's Beans way back in the order after that, getting knocked askew in that start down. He was in that first part of that melee down there.
It looks like we just saw a car pull off track. Christian Rice Spudo. He just pulled over and stopped. Not sure what that's about, but he's out of the race even after that really good climb that we just documented here. Here's Richard Sawicki, Caleb Patrick, Court Schmidt, Jordan Butler, Tristan Cadet. This is a big pack of cars back here for about 15th spot.
Huge pack of cars, and right on their 6th, right behind Blethen, who sits 20th, is now Piatek trying to come through again. Now, I'll tell you what, he had that start. That would have worked if he just checked up a little bit sooner, because he eventually just had too much speed and just slid into, was it
29?
Reyes?
Reyes, yep.
Yeah, and if he just, eased out of it just that smidge sooner, he would have had one of the great starts we've seen in this championship since the inception, and it just snuck away from him. But he is now going to get after it. Look, is he tracking the 72 of Butler right now?
It's getting pretty wild just ahead of him here. The 3 wide, Court Schmidt on the outside. That's Sawicki in the middle. They're bouncing off each other's doors here. Evan Hamitman on the inside, and the 372, we haven't mentioned him all day, slides across the nose of Sawicki, who gets body slammed, and Piatek's in it. Yeah,
Piatek got involved. Sawicki got tapped pretty aggressively. For Piatek.
Not his night, is it?
No, so quick, and again, just stymied at the back. Yeah, he got into Sawicki.
Oh, I want to go back and look one more time at a slightly different angle here. So,
yeah,
372 kind of does a slider on Sawicki here. He has to stop, and then the 72 of Butler and then Piatek, they can't just hit the brakes mid-corner, and then bam, into the concrete.
Ooh, that was a tough hit, yeah. So that's how that happened. So now, but we have Dibdal now has gone around on Huffman and has picked up that 4th spot. That all-white Miata sitting there in that 4th spot with Huffman behind him. And then guess who? Reyes. What a drive he has put in once again, even with that early contact from Piatek. The Newell and Nicholson is up from 10th to 8th already, and Soto has cracked the top 10.
Yeah, lots of really impressive drives from names that we've seen lingering but haven't really been a part of the front pack battling for the lead until today. And I think part of that is because they put themselves in this position. Maybe part of it also because some of the front runners like Jordan Butler, like Piatek, like Skip Brock Jr. And even the 23 of Beans Forster, they've had their own issues, but Greg, you have to capitalize. And a lot of times I've heard people say that you don't win championships based on your good days, you win them based on your bad days. You talked about consistency earlier. If you can minimize your bad days, run consistently in the top 10, you're going to do well in the championship. And Dean Dibdahl, if he could just do this the rest of the season, he could absolutely be a factor along with Camden Hibbett and others.
Absolutely. I mean, he has been really impressive. He's shown great speed and just is consistently right in that window. And if he can continue to put in these kind of drives, you're absolutely right. And Jamison Huffman doing the job too. Then back here, Nicholson has gone through on Newell. That puts Nicholson now up into that 7th spot. But he's about a second and a half off of Reyes. You can see that purple number 29 disappearing right in front of this gaggle of cars. There's Reyes. And then it's Nicholson, Newell, Greenfield, and Soto. And then a gap back to Wozencroft, who's having another really good race.
Exchange for the lead here. Burkhardt and Rick Segrini trying to trade it. We'll see if Camden Hibbett takes him 3 wide. He thought about it. He thought about it, and he bailed out. He didn't want to do that there, but he absolutely had the opportunity and just sat on it there.
Well, it's interesting seeing these teammates here side by side, because when they're side by side, if they allow each other to stay side by side, it makes it really tough for anybody to get a move on them. But now Hibbett senses opportunity. Oh, what a cut under move by Hibbett. Went with Rick Segrini, sold him the dummy maybe, and then dove to get right behind your leader Burkhardt here as they get into the braking zone. How's this going to play out? And Camden, I think, wisely checked up just a little bit here and said, I don't want to be side by side at the apex and lose all that momentum and get slaughtered as we get up into Collier.
And Huffman and Dibdahl were leaning on each other, trading paint there, rubbing some pink off on the whiteboard there of Dibdahl's car. But here comes the 29 up the outside. That's John Reyes on Huffman. To the inside now, rather, in turn 10 Cunningham.
Yep, Cunningham now that weave through Collier. And all of that has allowed Nicholson to catch this group. And it's basically, I mean, for all intents and purposes, we've got ourselves, what, about an 8-car duel for the lead right now, with Greenfield not far out of it.
Yeah, the last time we came by the stripe, I looked at the distance that, oh that was dicey there. Camden Hibbett's going to look out to driver's right. Hold that thought here. They're going to go for it? No, but I saw Nicholson's gap up to the lead. In total, it's 1.8 seconds. He's absolutely not out of it yet. And that's a big concern for Camden Hibbett, because, you know, I don't think there's any wish in the Nicholson camp to help Camden drive by his teammates. So when Nathan Nicholson gets there, I don't know if it's an if. I think it's a when. When he gets there, what does Camden Hibbett do?
Exactly, and to me, this is kind of interesting, because we saw in that previous race, we've seen it before here, you know, if everybody gets a relatively equal run out of Le Mans, and Nicholson dives down underneath Reyes and now has 6. But we've seen if everybody gets a relatively equal run out of Le Mans, it's still difficult to make a draft pass to get through here. And I think we're seeing Hibbett sort of exploring opportunities before they get there. And that, in a little look move, as he's down to the inside of Rick Segrini here, they both dip the brake, not trying to overrun or certainly give Dibdahl here any big opportunity to do anything. But Dibdahl gets the nose up inside of Rick Segrini. There's that little juke, and now we get into turn 3. And touch. Rick Segrini, a little wobble, but it was Dibdahl who ended up having to give way. But that's close stuff. But what I was getting back to with Hibbett was exploring a move before we get into Jean de Bienne, to be able to dive down the inside, entering Jean de Bienne, and park somebody on the outside there, if that's what he needs to do to be able to maybe break up this teamwork here.
Yeah, I mean, we've done this combination enough times that I feel like a lot of the tricks have been tried, but that one in particular I don't think we've seen yet. So a lot of them have saved it to Sunset Bend. But if you don't have any chance to recover and try again, the concern is you get the pass done in Le Mans, that, you know, or Jean de Bienne, that they could come back at you by the time you get to Sunset Bend. But, you know, we've seen issues with, you know, acceleration with the low torque that these cars have. If you can get the job done and back up that driver just enough, I think you can get away with it. But again, it's all coming down to experimentation, and you only get the last lap twice a night when we do these races, so you only get 2 tries. And Camden Hibbett's first try didn't work, so he'll have to do it again.
Exactly, and I think he was just sort of exploring. He didn't actually try it. He just went wide and was, I think, judging, all right, what kind of run did I get? What kind of speed did I get relative? At that time, I think it was Rick Segrini out front. But nonetheless, just trying to go, okay, if I need to throw it down the inside here, because we've seen, if you're, still behind the guy, even if you swing out wide to go through 17 and they protected the inside, you run the risk, though, of getting your outside on those bumps. And it's tough to get the car back to the apex and be able to pick the throttle up aggressively enough, Kyle. You can pick it up, but you're still bouncing to do it aggressively enough, baby, to be able to get that nose ahead. So you've got to have at least a couple of options, arrows in your quiver there, just in case.
Oh, Nicholson's around, into Huffman rather. Nicholson stays straight, goes up to 5th, but Huffman is turned around backwards.
Oh, what a great run he had. And when he went down underneath Dibdahl, and Dibdahl never saw him coming.
Vortex of danger there, Greg. That's it.
Yeah, that's it.
Classic vortex of danger.
Yeah, Randy Popes will talk about that as he should at length. And, that's the important thing. And that's the thing. When you make a move and you're so far inside of somebody, and I mean away from the car you're passing, you get way down inside. If you're out of their line of sight through the mirrors, there are times they won't even know you're there. They're going to take their line. And so you've still got to, when you make a move like that, Bo Barfield at IMSA has a great way of putting it, present yourself for the pass. Let them know, you don't telegraph it, but when you make the move, you let them know you're there so they don't turn down into you. And I think that was a case maybe of him not, getting close enough, as weird as it sounds, to making that pass here on Dibdahl.
It's like sending a text before you make the phone call, right? You want them to know that you're going to do it, but not tell them exactly what you're going to do.
Yeah. You text them, you don't telegraph.
Exactly.
There you go.
Modern age, Greg.
There you go.
The telegraphs were all gone, I think, at this stage. But
I think we're right. Yeah. All right, coming up on 5.5 minutes to go here. Right now, this lead trio has just a little bit in hand, about a half a second clear of Dibdahl, who's got Nicholson closing quickly on him.
Yeah, interesting battle here because now we don't have Burkhardt and Rick Segrini attached at the hip like they were in the first race. Hibbett is between them. He's got to defend vigorously to keep Jordan Rick Segrini behind him once we get down to the last 2 laps, because as soon as you pair those front 2 up again, it's going to be very, very hard to unseat them. Dean Dibdahl's lingering back here, but Nathan Nicholson's right behind him. Give him a lap. Nicholson will be in 4th, and then it's Burkhardt, Hibbett, and then 2 teammates of Burkhardt's behind Hibbett. So it's gonna get really interesting here these last 3 laps.
Yeah, it is. Is Dibdahl, is he? Well, yeah, that's a really good point. But right now, this dynamic's interesting with the 3 teammates, the top 2 separated by a car, and 2nd and 3rd of the teammates separated by a car. Oh, and I just saw Dibdahl there a little bit wide. Nicholson might be able to get this move done. Nope, had to tuck back in. And of course, Jan Reyes is just sitting there waiting for somebody to make some sort of mistake.
2 laps to go, and we didn't really see the tricks at play until about the last half a lap. But I wonder if Hibbett's going to try something a little different instead of waiting that long. He could, but I know Rick Segrini not going to wait that long, and neither will Nicholson.
Yeah, this is going to be really intriguing to see when they decide to pull the trigger. Will Hibbett do it in that run through that quick double apex left of Bishop? And the thing is, he has to execute it perfectly, park Burkhardt, and park Burkhardt as Deacon Greenfield, after another great run now, drops out of the top 10 to 14th. Whoa. That looked like it was more evasive, just trying to get around and not get collected by the 123 of Newell. Did he help him? Oh, he helped him.
Yeah, I think he got into there a little bit hot.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And going straight.
So he's got some work to do here. But what I was saying was if you try that earlier move, what you really need to do is you need to park Burkhardt, and you need to park him to the point where it holds up Rick Segrini. Otherwise, Rick Segrini will probably go blowing by both of them.
And there's Nicholson past Dibdall, so.
Oh, there it is. So
Yep.
You called it.
Yep, and we're about a lap and a half until the checkers here in race 2. Morgan Burkhardt trying to do what he did at Watkins Glen last week and grab a first and a second.
Just of note, Soto has worked his way from deep in the field after that first race finish up into 7th right now. So doing an absolutely incredible job. We know the speed he has. It's just so frustrating to see him mired often enough where he gets collected in things. And now Hibbett, look at the focus on this guy's face here as he is trying to figure out where am I going to do what at this stage. And here's the run. Runs a little bit wide there, but they both did. And looking back, there's Rick Segrini. And about the same distance behind Rick Segrini is now Nicholson and then Dibdall. And then Reyes just watching.
You know, when Camden's not in the immediate heat of battle, sometimes you can catch a wry smile here and there, but right now he is all focus. As here goes Rick Segrini down the inside. From out of nowhere, pop goes the Weasel, and through goes Rick Segrini for the lead if he can steal it from Burkhardt here coming to the white flag.
Boy, and I thought for a second that Rick Segrini had done that non-presentation thing, although you know that those teammates are talking and that there may have been a touch. And now, with a big draft opportunity, Nicholson comes up there 4 abreast as we start this final lap. Way down to the inside is Hibbett, then Burkhardt, Rick Segrini, Nicholson squaring up underneath everybody. It is 3 wide coming out of turn 1, up into turn 3. Will Nicholson stuff it up in there? He will. Hibbett's got nowhere to go. He floats wide. They're off along with Burkhardt, and it's going to be Nathan Nicholson to the lead, and Dibdall might just end up 2nd after this exchange. And is that going to be Rick Segrini that's back into 3rd?
Yes. Wow, what a sequence of corners that was. Nicholson to the lead, Dibdall into the catbird seat. I can't imagine that Hibbett and Burkhardt don't have slowdowns, but it seems like if they did, they served them. It's not over yet, Greg.
No, it's not. And with Burkhardt back in 5th, Reyes now is right there as well. So, oh boy, this whole complexion has changed because once again, Nicholson does not have a friendly face in his mirrors right now. And Rick Segrini, boy, did he get to run that last lap out of Lamar and just threw it down into 1. Now he's going to try and come up and around the outside of Cunningham Corner. If he can make it stay put here, it could work. But Hibbett going to try and help out Dibdall. They are still side by side through Collier. That should give Dibdall the inside line into Tower. Hibbett thinking about it. Oh, contact right there. More contact. And that's all going to help Nicholson just get that little bit of a margin. And Reyes trying to come up now on the outside of the 108 to Rick Segrini.
They needed to stiff arm the 108, keep him from getting lined up with Nicholson. They did that, though. Hibbett, his best friend is going to be Dean Dibdall here. They got to get hooked up and go together on this back straightaway contact. Hibbett gets turned off the nose of Rick Segrini. He goes for a wild ride through Jean de Bienne, and he's back on course now, but he's going to end up out of this fight.
What a shame. Out of the battle for the lead, but now Nicholson and Dibdall, and there's nobody else close enough at this stage without doing something absolutely insane. And of course, you know, contact between these two, the whole thing changes again. Is Dibdall going to dive to the inside late, or is he going to try and take the move here, let Nicholson go, and then try and do an outside move? He's trying to now square up underneath. They are both hard on the throttle. Where's Rick Segrini? Dibdall got a nice run. He's down to the inside. Rick Segrini not close enough. Here we go. Is Dibdall going to have enough of it? No. It goes to Nicholson over Dibdall with Rick Segrini, a podium. Reyes in 4th, Hibbett 5th. Then Soto, Burkhardt, Patry, Wozencroft, and Friedman. But what a duel on that last lap. Here comes some more of our finishers coming across the line here.
That's Skip Rock Jr., Lofrent, Forster, Ayrton Grimm. Holy cow, what a last lap.
Unbelievable. And these guys still enjoying this cool down lap at pace, but wow, the whole dynamic changed. And I'll tell you what, Nicholson did a brilliant job to get to the front, but Dibdall, he came really close to pulling that one off, didn't he?
Yeah, going back a little bit further, here's what happened out of turn 1. You see them 3 wide here. Nicholson, he just drove in here really hot. He's going to shove Hibbett out wide into Burkhardt. They get taken off course. They go for a wild ride through here. You see Dibdahl squeeze through, then head down a little bit later in the lap when they get all jammed up here with Rick Segrini on the outside into Cunningham. Hibbett sees an opportunity here to follow Dibdahl through, but they have to stiff arm and lock out the 108. They're going to do that right here at Tower. Little shove and hip check there. They get single file. They head down to Jean Debienne, and then Hibbett gets turned off the nose to Rick Segrini. He goes for a straight line run all the way off track. He's in the next county over as Rick Segrini deals with John Reyes. This was a wild last lap.
But he kept his boot in it, didn't he, Hibbett did? And he was almost up into third as he rejoined the track here. And then I'll tell you, this was really cool because, and you got to give a lot of credit to Nathan Nicholson here because you see Dibdahl there goes Nicholson, that little sort of feint to the inside, and Dibdahl didn't pop out as wide, and Nicholson didn't have to defend as tight to the inside. But Dibdahl still got a great run out of here, didn't he, Kyle?
Yeah, it was a great run. He timed it just a little bit better. He might have had enough of a run. It just 3 feet earlier on the throttle, he could have won that race. Lost it by 83 thousandths. All of our margins under 900ths today. That is unbelievable. Both races nail biters to the end there, Greg. But wow, they're still cooling down. They're still on the limit here as they're wrapping things up. But they're going to come back in, cooling down.
The combined margin of victory in our 2 races here is under 13 100ths of a second.
That's unbelievable.
That's just crazy. Great stuff, and that entire lap was absolutely fascinating. And Nathan Nicholson, welcome to the Full Send Sims Esports iRacing Spec Miata Championship. Absolutely stellar drive, picks up the win here. Dean Dibdahl, I think probably his best finish of his career in this championship with a great fighting second. Look how close that was. And then almost a half second back to Rick Segrini, who adds more points with another podium. Jean Reyes, another fighting fourth. And Camden Hibbett really deserved better than fifth in that one. Just left that little opening there, and Rick Segrini it was going to go for it. And that's where the contact happened. And then Josh Soto, what a fight from the back once again.
Yeah, Soto did an amazing job climbing forward. You see Caleb Patry there, a top 10. Caleb Patry's one of those that was really hot in a previous season, Greg. It seems like that magic and the luck has gone away a bit from the 998, so hoping he can right the ship. Wozencroft with a top 10, a nice solid run for him. Court Schmidt snagged an 11th after getting caught up in that lap 1, turn 1 collision. Jorge Ortiz, Skip Brock 13th and 14th. Beans Forster recovered to 16th after that turn 1, lap 1 crash. Looking down the rest of the order at some others that didn't have a great finish in race 2, but we saw plenty of their racing action today.
Well, I'll tell you, for Beans, coming back and getting that kind of a finish after that early off, and Josh Soto fighting through and finishing where he did, they come in here 3rd and 4th of the points. So that was really, really important for them to be able to do that. So, well done by those guys, obviously, at this stage. And you're right about Caleb. We've seen such great speed from him. And he's got wins. He is a really consummate driver. Just has really hit one of those, if you have any luck, it's bad luck kind of stretches. And you absolutely hate to see that here. For Nicholas Rice-Puto, again, comes in here 2nd in the points. That finish isn't going to help. But remember, there are drops to be factored in here. So, but we did see some absolutely stellar driving in this one. And great to see Skip Brock after that horrific weekend he had at the Glen and that horrible first start to the race, be able to fight his way through it. I think that Andrew Wozencroft, that's 2 top 10s here today. I think he had a 10th and a 9th.
Yeah, I think you're right about that.
A great run for Andrew. Great to see.
Well, first up was our podium finisher, 3rd in race number 2, but he won race number 1. It was Jordan Rick Segrini. Jordan, another fantastic round of racing here at Sebring. It got fierce out there, especially at the tail end of race number 2. Some hip checks and some trade and paint take us through your night tonight, especially working with your teammates in that first race and then having to be on offense there on the tail end of race 2.
Yeah, no, the first race went great. It was fun driving with Morgan per usual, and then last lap, normally you don't want to be out in front, but he dragged the brakes and waited for Nathan, and I was 16, and I just had enough room where I could hold the inside going to 17, and made sure to get good exit and was just enough to hold on to it before the line. Race 2 was definitely a knife out fight from the start. It was definitely a crazy one. Nobody wanted to give up anything. Nobody wanted to work together. It was a whole lot of bumping and banging, but tried to stay out of everybody's way as much as I could, and was honestly pretty lucky to come away with a third there.
Well, the dynamic of that second race, Jordan, was so different because you 3 team cars were split with a car in between each of you for a good chunk of that race. At that point, what starts going through your mind? You know, the first race, it was the 3 teammates working together. You made a big lunge on Morgan at one point down into 17 with, maybe 5 minutes to go. What was your thought process at that point?
I felt like the pace was pretty slow. People were catching up, and I just felt like if I could get out front, maybe not get away from the field, but it would be a 2 or 3 horse race instead of 6 or 7. And that's what I was trying to do, but nobody wanted. It was just real tight. Everybody was trying to keep their position.
Well, and you bring up a great point. I mean, that second race, you guys started that last lap with, I think, 7 cars that were still potentially in it. Just incredibly close racing. Going into Tower, you got sort of shuffled back a little bit, but then you got a nose underneath Camden. I think going into Jean de Bienne, turn 15 down there, it looked like he just left a little opening, and you thought you had an opportunity there.
Yeah, no, I got shuffled around the outside, stuck out there through Tower, and then coming to Jean de Bienne, just was going actually defensive, and whoever was behind me was right on me, and I wasn't really trying to go for the pass there. It just kind of worked out where I had no choice. I couldn't hit the brakes, and Cam wasn't expecting to move there. That's not really a place where you'd want to make a pass going the last lap, so it was an unfortunate circumstance. I already said sorry to him. Definitely wasn't trying to take him out, especially on the last lap.
Well, as always, just an absolute treat to watch you race, watch how you strategize things. And, after you sort of fell off the map a little bit at Daytona after qualifying second with some rough finishes, you rebounded smartly at the Glen and then come back with a vengeance here. You are doing an absolutely superb job getting to the lead in the points early and then racking up points as you continue to go. Well done, my friend. First half done.
Thank you, Greg. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Jordan. And we're going to move on now to, let's see, we got Nathan Nicholson up, winner of race number 2, and a fierce fight with your teammates in race 1, but race 2 you come out on top, Nathan. Congratulations. I believe it's the first time we've seen you here in this series, and boy, you put on a show. Take us through that first race defending from Camden Hibbett, and that second race carving through the chaos on that last lap.
Yeah, first race, just kind of feeling everything out. I'm pretty sure this is the first road course race I've done with these guys in, a year or so. I did Daytona, and that was, a story of its own. But, race 1 was a lot more tame. And, I was just kind of playing the game, figuring out how everything was working. And, I wanted to get in there and race. That's what we all do here. So got in there and raced pretty hard in race 2 and came out on top.
Yeah, you did, and it was a fascinating study, and it was interesting. Both Kyle and I were wondering why you seemed to be a little less aggressive than we thought in that first race, and then we got a note from somebody that said, he's a teammate to those guys.
Yeah.
and then we went, oh.
Yeah.
But that changed that dynamic up a lot. But in the second race, you guys got split by other cars. What did that do at that point to your mindset? And, this is the first time you've raced a road race. You said in these cars, there's a little bit different setup on these. Did you learn a lot from that first race that helped you here in race 2?
Yeah, so race 1, I was kind of playing conservative with the tires as well. Especially at this track with a ton of high-speed corners, you can blow the front tires off pretty easily. And I was a little too conservative in race 1, and I had a lot of pace in the car. And of course, I got shuffled back early on, so I was just full push all the way through and, started to pick up a little understeer towards the end. But, hopefully I'll come around for a couple more of these and I can take that knowledge on with me.
Well, we sure hope to see you again. And I got to ask you, that last run into Sunset, into 17, with Dean right behind you there. Looked like you went to defend, but you didn't go as far over as we see a lot of others go heading into 17. Did you understand that you wanted to have yourself be able to still have a little bit of exit speed out of that corner, thinking you might need it?
Yeah, the start-finish line's still a pretty far distance from the last turn, so, I knew everyone goes for the super narrow line there and tries to park it up on apex, and it's pretty easy to swing around the outside, so I wanted to take control of the racing line best I could, and as soon as I got him on my rear quarter panel, it's exactly where I wanted him, and I was able to have a good exit and, get out of the corner.
Well, you played it to absolute perfection. Welcome to the series. We hope to see a lot more of you. Absolutely delightful to watch you race.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nathan. And let's talk with Morgan Burkhardt. There's a couple others that are could talk to Camden Hibbett. I don't have Dean Dibdahl available, unfortunately, but we do have Morgan Burkhardt here, who was 7th in race number 2, 2nd in race number 1. Morgan, this has been a tough season so far in general. Race 1, everything kind of went to plan. Race 2, it did not take us through that last lap. It was chaotic from really the second that white flag came out.
Yeah, I mean, I felt like I was in a pretty good spot coming into the last lap, and I mean, that's how racing happens sometimes. We went 3 wide. I tried to back out of it, but coming into turn 3, I guess I didn't get on the brakes early enough and ended up going off the road, got a ton of left side damage, and then the car would not turn left after that, or turn right after that, which unfortunately all of the remaining corners are right-handers. So I was kind of screwed after that, but I mean, congrats to Nathan. He did a really good job, and most of the tonight's races, I was trying to kind of pressure the pack and create a cork in the bottle situation. I wanted to kind of slow everybody up so that they would start fighting, and then maybe I could break away, because I knew on the first race I had some pace on Jordan, but I couldn't, it wasn't enough to just break away. I could keep him at like 3 or 4 tenths, but unless they started fighting, it wasn't going to happen. So I tried to pressurize that situation, and unfortunately it didn't really work.
Well, you play such great strategy moves so often, they're not all going to work for you, but it was a great idea. I got to ask you, that second lap, or that second race, the final lap, I mean, you guys were 4 abreast before you even got to the braking zone of 1, and you were 3 abreast through that corner all the way up into turn 3. I know you ended up, getting the worst of it, but that was one of the most scintillating final laps in total that we've ever had. It was spectacular stuff, and you were right in the middle of it.
Yeah, no, it was pretty exciting to watch, and that's the part that I didn't account for enough, is pressurizing the pack. You're gonna have more cars, and then that's more variables. And it was difficult to predict for that, and it was pretty fun to watch people just going side by side pretty much everywhere, and it came right down to the stripe.
Well, it sure was fun to call. And hey, after obviously having your focus being toward your real world racing at Daytona, with that great program you have in the Michelin Pilot Series this year, once you got your head back into this one, you could focus a little bit. You came back with a vengeance at Daytona, and another, even though you didn't finish as well as you'd like in the second race, another great first race. Nice to have you back, my friend.
It's good to be back. I miss these guys.
Yeah, I bet you're having a lot of fun with the Victor Gonzalez boys in those Hyundais as well. So keep that going, my friend.
I appreciate it. We're definitely having a blast.
I bet.
Thanks, Morgan. All right, Greg. Man, Sebring never fails. Always a good show, and it's kind of sad because we don't get to see it for a handful of more weeks, because we go to some other great racetracks here in North America. Lime Rock up next. We head back to Homestead. We've got Road Atlanta, VIR coming up, but another great night of racing here at Sebring. Respect the bumps they did, but they also bumped each other.
Yeah, they did. But you know what? I thought we were going to see a much bigger incident at some point in turn 1 than we did. Even that, that second race start, It was sizable, but I mean, it wasn't what we've seen there before. So I think everybody kind of really had their race game face on a bit more. And I'll tell you what, Kyle, that the second race, that last lap, the complete lap, was absolutely spectacular stuff. This series just seems to get better and better, and it's attracting such great fields this year. It just ups the ante considerably, and all of that, of course, is due to the incredible efforts of Kurt Schmidt and Full Send Sims, this remarkable simulator company that takes the understanding of military level simulation, building and training, and incorporates real world race driving skills into the equation. And that's where you get Practice Makes Podium. And then, of course, our other phenomenal presenting sponsors that continue to support this series, 3P Logistics. They do just an incredible job. And their trackside engineering, and we also have the great support from Final Turn Motorsports, who also are absolutely superb in their trackside logistics. They often work together at events, and of course Wine Country Motorsports now being a part of it as well. Want to remind everybody that our next school is this Thursday, and that will be held at the Lime Rock Classic track, which we will be racing at our next round of the championship next Tuesday night on the 13th, as we kick off the second half of this first season of 2024. For Finian DeCuna, do an incredible job as always with our camera positioning. To Kyle Heyer, I'm Greg Creamer. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next week from the Bull Ring at Lime Rock Park.